All right, let's talk about one of the most iconic experiments in all of psychology. It's got all the drama you need. A kid, a researcher, and a single, fluffy, unbelievably tempting marshmallow.
Now, our guide for this whole deep dive is the source material itself, Walter Mischel's amazing book, The Marshmallow Test. For decades, right, this experiment has been this simple little story about willpower. But as we're about to find out, the popular version of the story, it gets the most important part completely wrong.
So just for a second, put yourself in that little chair. Imagine that marshmallow is sitting right there in front of you. You can have this one treat right now, or you can wait and get two. It's the ultimate test, isn't it? Instant gratification versus a better reward later. What would you do?
Okay, so let's start with the classic experiment itself. Mischel and his team over at Stanford set this whole thing up in a pretty plain room they called the surprise room, and their test subjects were preschoolers. The rules were brutally simple. You have a child, usually around 4 years old, sitting at a table with a treat. They're told, hey, the researcher has to leave for a little bit. If you can wait, just wait right here without eating the marshmallow, you'll get a second one when I come back. But if you just can't wait, ring this little bell, I'll come back right away, but you'll only get the one marshmallow. And this, right here, this gets to the very heart of it. The test so brilliantly takes this internal battle that we all face every single day and makes it real. It's that constant fight between our impulsive, I want it now desires and our rational, long-term goals. It's a drama playing out in a 4-year-old's head? Sure, but it's the very same one that shapes so many of our adult decisions. Now, this is what made the experiment absolutely famous. See, Mischel's team didn't just pack up and go home after the kids ate the marshmallow. Oh no, they followed these kids for decades. And what they found was just astonishing. The number of seconds a little kid could wait seemed to predict so much about their future. Their SAT scores, how they handled stress, their social skills. It was like this simple little test was a crystal ball into a person's entire life.
And that's the story most of us know, right? But here's the twist. Here is the crucial point that changes everything. The biggest, most important discovery of the marshmallow test was not that some kids are just born with more willpower than others.
So the myth that grew around this was that self-control is just this fixed thing you're born with. You know, you either have it or you don't. But what Mischel's work actually showed was the reality, that self-control is a set of cognitive skills. And this is a total game changer. Because if they're skills, that means they can be taught, they can be practiced, and they can be learned by anyone.
So the real magic wasn't in if the kids waited, but how they waited. The kids who were successful, they didn't just sit there gritting their teeth and white-knuckling it. No, they used specific mental strategies to make waiting possible. They'd sing songs, they'd literally turn their backs on the marshmallow, they were actively changing the situation inside their own minds. And this brings us to the how. How do you actually do this? Well, the key is understanding that we're all walking around with two competing systems firing away in our brains.
Mischel uses this fantastic analogy from Aesop's fables. So we've got a hot system, which is like the impulsive grasshopper. It's all emotion, it's fast, reflexive, and it's screaming go, go, go. And then we've got a cool system, which is like the thoughtful ant. It's cognitive, it's reflective, and it's the part of you that says, hey, slow down, let's think about the future. The whole art of self-control is just learning how to cool down that hot system and fire up the cool system.
Exactly. That's the million-dollar question, right? How do you give that rational little ant the upper hand when the emotional grasshopper is screaming for that marshmallow? Well, it turns out there are some incredibly effective and totally teachable strategies.
The first, and maybe the most powerful tool, is something called cognitive reappraisal. Now, that's a fancy term for a really simple idea. You just change how you think about the temptation. The kids who waited successfully did this on their own. They'd pretend the marshmallow was a fluffy cloud, or just a picture of a marshmallow. Mischel even points to this great Sesame Street bit where Cookie Monster learns to resist eating a cookie by pretending it's a smelly fish. You can also do the reverse. You can heat up the future consequences. So a smoker can vividly imagine getting a cancer diagnosis to make that distant threat feel really hot and immediate. I mean, how perfect is this? Shakespeare absolutely nailed it. The power isn't in the marshmallow itself, it's in how our mind frames it. Is it a delicious, tempting treat, or is it a smelly fish? The choice and all the power is in how we think about it.
All right, this next tool is incredibly practical, especially if you're trying to build better habits. It's a simple but really profound technique called if-then planning. So here's how it works. You think ahead. You identify a trigger, a hot spot, where you know your impulsive system is going to try to take over. That's your if. Then you decide right now, in a cool moment,
on a specific behavior you're going to do when that trigger happens. That's your then. So for example, if I get the urge to mindlessly scroll on my phone, then I will stand up and walk around the room for 1 minute. By preloading the decision, you basically put the good behavior on autopilot. You don't have to rely on willpower in that heated moment.
Okay, our final strategy is all about perspective. When we're stuck in a really emotional or difficult moment, we're often way too close to it, We're totally immersed in the heat of it all. The key is to take a step back.
There's some amazing research from Ethan Kross that shows a powerful way to do this. Instead of reliving a painful memory through your own eyes, you imagine you're a fly on the wall, just watching the scene from a distance. That little bit of self-distancing is enough to let your cool system engage. It stops you from just feeling the pain all over again and instead lets you analyze it, understand it, and maybe even find some closure.
So you see, these aren't just little tricks to get a second marshmallow. These skills are the fundamental building blocks for creating the life you actually want and for becoming the person you want to be.
And get this, there is some wild neuroscience that explains why it's so hard for us to do things that are good for us in the long run. Studies by Hal Hershfield found that when people think about their future self, their brain activity looks exactly the same as when they think about a complete stranger. I mean, no wonder it's hard to save for retirement when, on a brain level, it feels like you're just giving your money away to some random person you don't even know. The skills we've been talking about, they're the bridge across that gap. They're what allow you to connect with that future you, to feel like their well-being actually matters right now. They empower you to make today's choices line up with your long-term goals, effectively weaving this continuous story between the person you are today and the person you're hoping to become.
And we're going to end with this quote that just perfectly wraps up the core lesson from Walter Mischel's entire life's work. The marshmallow is just a marshmallow. The frustrating situation at work is just a situation. The temptation is just a stimulus. The real power is, and always has been, in our hands, or more accurately, in our minds.
So the ultimate takeaway from the marshmallow test isn't that your destiny was written in stone when you were 4. It's actually a message of incredible possibility. Self-control isn't your fate, it's a skill. And if you can learn it, if you can practice it, the only real question left is, what will you do with it? What kind of future will you choose to build?